Hello there and welcome. So today I thought I'd just briefly mention something of interest which I've been thinking about for a while, and I caught myself the other day thinking, steady on, you need to be a little bit careful here. And what I'm going to mention to you is rushing, being in a hurry. And unfortunately, one of the problems we seem to have in modern traffic use is that drivers, riders will very often think more about the purpose of their journey than the journey itself, the actual drive, the actual ride. Many of us are under time restraints these days, and we need to be places for a certain time, and then we get held up because traffic's so busy these days. And I think for a lot of people, I'm not too bad in my world, but for a lot of people, they feel very pressurised and they start to rush. Now, I read some time ago, and I think it was a Transport for London report on crash statistics within the city, that rushing was a contributory factor in the vast majority of motorcycle collisions. And when you think about it, if all you're really concerned about is from getting from A to B as quickly as possible, you're probably not going to be focusing very much on the skill of driving, on the hazards that are on the road. You're very preoccupied. So I was quite fortunate with my previous training that we became aware of a thing called red mist, because naturally as an emergency services driver, when you have to go somewhere and you need to be somewhere, you need to be there. But it was always drummed into you that red mist, i.e. chasing somebody or just being in a hurry there to get where you need to go, you know, the noble cause if you like, should not be used as an excuse to risk take or to do things that are absolutely dangerous. Because there is no excuse for it. It doesn't matter what the purpose of your journey is, because if you don't arrive at all, then actually there's no point in the journey, is there? You know, you've just created another problem for somebody else, and you've certainly not achieved what you wanted to achieve. Now, I don't know how many of you watching this are going to be riding for work. If you're doing your CBT and you're going to be one of those delivery drivers, deliver the food on your motorcycles, and I've seen a lot of those where I live who, you know, sadly don't ride very safely in traffic. You know, they're putting themselves at risk. Yeah, sure, you need to do your job. But just be aware that if you are going to rush around and not pay attention, you really are putting yourself at high risk of having a collision. And it's just not worth it. So one phrase that we used to use quite a lot is maintain the discipline. So in other words, you know, you've been trained to ride in a certain way. Always ride in that certain way. Always preserve your safety, no matter how urgent you perceive your journey to be. You know, nobody on this road is any more important than anybody else. You know, I've got no right to be from A to B any faster than anybody else. And it's like the other day when I caught myself out, I wanted to be somewhere rather rapidly, shall we say, and I had to check myself and say, look, if you start rushing and your ride starts to suffer, and if you go away from what you're supposed to be doing because you think you just need to be fast, then you're putting yourself at risk. You're putting yourself at risk of colliding with another vehicle or failing to maintain a bend, and it isn't worth it. So the good news is, if you want to be a quick rider and you want to make progress, then good training, good polished ability is what will get you from A to B in the promptest way. I know we often hear that, you know, if you exceed the speed limit by 10 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour, it doesn't actually produce much in the way of getting to your end destination that much quicker. And I was thinking about those figures the other day, and I thought, do you know, it's probably true, isn't it? You know, you just get the perception actually that by driving or riding fast and hurrying up that you are getting somewhere a lot quicker, but I think the reality is you're not really. And I think the classic example of that is where someone comes tearing past you, overtakes you, does a few dangerous overtakes, and a few moments later at the roundabout, the traffic lights, you're behind them. It's like, what was that all about? As a motorcyclist, you know, really ask you to be mindful of this rushing mentality, because it will cost you dear one day if you're unlucky. I always find it interesting to note as well that when I'm training students, even if they're starting off riding with the basics, even off-road, as soon as they start rushing anything, like the U-turn, that's a classic example. You know, there's several things to think about and do. If it's rushed, it never works well. And yet as soon as they relax, take the time, pace themselves, it all comes together, and it's very effective. So it's a clear indicator that rushing when you're a road user with vehicles is a really bad thing to do. So just a few thoughts for today. I'll leave it there. So until next time, ride safe and take care.